how does Trump try to win some of those voters back on Tuesday night? And in some cases, Republicans. Yeah, Republicans. Liz Cheney just announced her father, former Vice President Dick Cheney, will be voting for Harris. And this was Trump's response. Dick Cheney is an irrelevant rhino along with his daughter. He's the king of endless, nonsensical wars, wasting lives and trillions of dollars, just like comrade Kamala Harris. All right, let's bring in Substack author and political analyst Chris Cillizza, Republican strategist Lance Trover, and host of the aggressive progressive podcast, Chris Hahn. All right, Chris Cillizza, let me start with you. Let's talk about Tuesday night's debate. I'm assuming there's debate prep on both sides happening over the weekend. What do you think both candidates are up to?
Well, I mean, Harris, I think there's definitely debate prep happening. I think they've basically blocked her schedule up, which candidly, I think is smart. She's never been in a presidential debate before, and there's huge stakes here for her. Trump, this will be his seventh general election presidential debate, which I think is more than anyone. I can't imagine anyone's done more than that. So he's been there and done that. And to be honest, I know they'll say he's preparing. I don't think he does any what we would call formal preparation. I don't think he's doing mock debates. I think he kind of gets up there and does his thing. Like Trump is like a guy, you press the button and he sort of goes, like in any setting. So I think you kind of know what you're going to get, whether he does prep or not. I think Harris, to me, is the big X factor and probably has more at stake in the debate for that reason.
Yeah, I have a feeling we'll see Trump probably golfing over the weekend. Lance, today Liz Cheney announced that her father, Dick Cheney, will be voting for Kamala Harris. We knew that Liz Cheney was voting for Harris. Now Dick Cheney coming on board. I mean, it does feel a little more shocking with Dick Cheney. With Liz, it just felt like, I don't know. I think everybody kind of expected it. But what do you make of this Dick Cheney decision?
I personally don't find it shocking. It's zero surprise, and I think it's going to have zero effect on this race. All due respect to the former vice president. I mean, I'm not disparaging him in any way, but this is a new dawn and a new day. It's Donald Trump's Republican Party. He's tied in all the polls right now and on the cusp of being the president again here in the country. Anybody who cares about Liz Cheney and what she thinks, and frankly, the former vice president's already made up their mind in this race anyway. So I just don't think it's going to have much of a factor at all.
Chris Hahn, what do you think? I mean, even if it doesn't have much of a factor, we know how close these elections can be, so even a little bit can make a difference. And I was sitting here wondering, I mean, could this endorsement hurt Kamala Harris with progressives, thinking like, gosh, she's already moving to the middle too much, and now you've got Dick Cheney endorsing her?
No, progressives are voting for Kamala Harris in masses as early as possible, and Dick Cheney will have no impact on them. But, if you would have told me 15 years ago that Dick Cheney and I would be supporting the same candidate for president of the United States, I think that would have been a very shocking thing for me to hear. But that's the case right now because the man on the other side is such an abomination who must be defeated at all costs that people who have ideology, whether they be left or right, must come together and defeat because he has no ideology. His debate prep is asking himself, which grievance should I whine and complain about? Me, a man who's been a billionaire my entire life, who was a millionaire at the age of 3, whining and complaining to the American people. If that shows up at the debate, kiss it goodbye, Donald. It's over. I think it's over anyway. I think this debate is more about, will Kamala Harris appeal to those 6% of Americans who say they are undecided? They are not undecided about Donald Trump. They are making up their mind whether or not they're going to come out to vote for her or stay home altogether. And that's what it's about for me next week.
Lance, you mentioned that you don't think Trump is doing much debate prep, but what do you think he should be preparing for? I mean, if you were advising him.
Well, I mean, I got to laugh at what Chris is saying. That's pretty rich talking about who doesn't stand for anything. When in Kamala Harris's timeline, she would have the voters believe that she was once a prosecutor in California and now some moderate who just showed up on the scene to run for president of the United States. She wants to gloss over her time as being the most liberal senator in the United States Senate when she served there, the most liberal campaign that's ever been run for president of the United States was by Kamala Harris, and the fact that she's been vice president while inflation has soared 20% and the border has spiraled out of control with 10 million illegal immigrants coming across. So what do I think Donald Trump needs to do? He and the moderators have to hold her accountable, because if she's allowed to, she'll walk into that debate and gloss over the last 8 years. So that he's going to have to hold her accountable. It's on him and, frankly, the moderators.
The last 8 years. I do. Look, I hope we talk about the last 8 years. I hope we talk about 2020, the worst year in American history that I could remember, at least that I was alive for. That was made worse by Donald Trump's incompetence. So if Donald Trump's incompetence is talked about, not just in 2020, but his entire presidency, which was a running train wreck for this country, it is, look, America has some sort of collective amnesia, or maybe it's just shock. We don't want to look back on it. But 2020 and the Trump presidency was horrible for this country, and it needs to be talked about every single day by everybody who's interested in.
Hey, thanks for watching. Go to joinnn.com to find NewsNation on your screen. And don't forget, click the red subscribe button below to get more of NewsNation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.